I took my daughter, my oldest child, to preschool. She was 4, I think, at the time. And I had done everything I could to make her life, to make her feel loved and wanted and to build her self-esteem. And I walked her up to this preschool and I was dropping her off and I had this moment where I was like, holy crap, I don't know that teacher. I don't know who she is. I'm turning over this treasure of mine to a complete stranger. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a teacher. And I decided I wanted to teach high school because I hated high school. I was miserable. And so I wanted to be the kind of teacher that kids would feel comfortable with, safe with, happy with.
My next question is, when you were growing up and in school, did you have a favorite teacher? And if so, what did they teach and what made them special?
I loved all of my English teachers. There wasn't anyone in particular that I was especially fond of because I wasn't happy in school. So that's another reason why I chose to be a high school teacher.
Share your teaching experience. What grades or subjects did you teach, and for how long did you teach these subjects?
28th year? 26th year here at Fox Chapel. I taught elementary school, fourth grade, my first year and a half at Winchester Thurston. Then I came here and I've taught 9th, 10th, and then 12 academic, accelerated, and AP. I was also the activities director for my first 8 years here.
Do you have a favorite lesson or unit that you like to teach or have taught in the past?
I love teaching Shakespeare. That's my favorite to teach. And I love especially the lesson on sonnets when I teach iambic pentameter, because the kids are always like, whoa, and I can always see that moment where it clicks in and they get it. And then they have, the fun part is when I make them write a poem in iambic pentameter.
Do you have a moment, I guess, in your teaching career that was funny or most entertaining to you?
The most memorable point in my teaching career happened in 2001. And I was teaching 12 AP that year. We were reading a story about a man reminiscing when he was a young boy and he realized he was gay. And after we read that story, the next day, one of my students came up to me and he's like, I want to come out to the class. And I was like, whoa, okay. This is 2001. And I was like, now my brother's gay, my sister's gay, so I'm like, okay, well, I'm probably the safest teacher for him to do that with. And we started to discuss the story, and Dan just said, I need to tell you all something. I understand what he's going through because I went through that. And I was kind of like, oh, how's this going to go? And after he explained everything, one of my students said, you know, that's the bravest thing I've ever seen anybody ever do. Yeah. And I still get a little weepy when I think about it. And so we talked the whole rest of the class about it. And at the end of the class, I said, you guys make sure you take care of him when we leave this classroom. And every year around that time, he emails me and just says, thank you for that, made all the difference in my life.
So my next question for you is, during your time as a teacher, what was the biggest change that you witnessed?
So the worst change was right around 2008, when the whole rhetoric about education and teachers suddenly became the enemy, and people were angry at us. And you make money. There was a collapse, right? The housing bubble collapsed, and the economy was impacted. And suddenly, because we had steady jobs and steady income, people were mad at us, and that was kind of like very difficult to deal with because people were mad at us instead of grateful.
So how have advances in technology, such as like smartphones and computers, I guess, affected or impacted your view on teaching?
I was thinking back to when we started, and we had an English department room, and we all shared one of those Apple Blueberries. Everybody used the same computer, one of those huge, enormous things on a desktop. I'm grateful for every advancement. Is there a learning curve? Yes. We have to learn how to accommodate the technological advances? Is it difficult with AirPods and having kids pay attention? I wouldn't change anything. I love the technology. I think it provides so much for us.
My next question is, you spent a long time working with young people and teaching students. What have you learned from the students?
You learn a lot about yourself when you interact with anybody, but especially, I never counted how many kids I must have taught over the last 27 years. I would say it keeps me young, like to stay abreast of the things that you all are doing, like your current, your current social system, how you speak to each other. I just got married and my stepsons are 15. They're in ninth grade, and I love that I can understand, the terms, the terminology, the language. They teach me. I learn from my students, and I feel like I relate to my students so much better because of it. The other thing I learned is patience. When I teach To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus Finch is this character whose lesson is to be empathetic and to look at the world through someone else's eyes. And I try to be like Atticus Finch and to see the world through my students' eyes. And I also know that all behavior is motivated by something, right? So I try to relate to my students through not the behavior, but what's the motivation behind it, right? Yeah. Instead of like, oh, you just got mad, you said this, you threw your phone down. That's the behavior. What's motivating that behavior, right? So that's what I've learned.
Discuss your teaching philosophy and how that, I guess, directed your approach to education.
Part of my teaching philosophy was don't take things personally and look at the motivation and not the behavior. But my philosophy was, when I started teaching, I wanted everyone to love learning, to have fun learning, and to walk out of my classroom feeling better about themselves than when they walked in.
So my next question is, what qualities make a great educator?
I would say, first of all, you can't take things personally, and you need to see your students, right? You can't make the content more important than the people. And I love my content. Like, I teach English because I love reading. I love books. I love stories. I love, everything literature. But I was never one of those people who would stress out because we couldn't get to the end of the unit and then be upset about the content rather than what my students were getting out of each day.
So what is the most challenging part about being a teacher?
It was different in the beginning. Like, in the beginning, you're a new teacher. It's just all so hard, right? You're overwhelmed. You don't know your content well enough. But once you're a master teacher and you know all your content, you've been teaching for decades, and you know the routine, you can make good lessons and you can reach the students. I think the hardest part right now is the mental illness challenges that the kids are having, and that I'm not equipped for that, right? I think I have a lot of empathy, and I think I have space to listen, but I just feel like I think the hardest part about teaching is taking care of my kids beyond educating them, right? That's, for me, the hardest thing.
My next question here is, if you give one piece of advice to parents or just the general public who question the importance of education, what would it be?
I would say teach for a week. Write the lessons, plan a unit, come in and teach for a week, and then talk to me about it. You can't, it's just like Atticus Finch. Like, until you have experienced it. And I know I've learned that over my lifetime, where I look and I'm like, oh, that person has it so easy. And then you find out, no, they don't. It just looks that way, right? So I think that for the public, and maybe even for some students, it looks like it's an easy gig, or something looks like an easy gig, but it's not. And so my advice to them would be to, don't assume you know what it's like to be an educator.
What would you like to say to any former students or past students watching this?
If I don't remember your name when I see you and I taught you 15 years ago, please don't take it personally. I mean, I really, that's about it.